The bread and butter of British operations in Maysan are these border patrols. And so what happens is Colonel Labouchere or one of his other commanders will take 3 or 4 light vehicles, Land Rovers, armed with just machine guns with, say, a dozen troopers or so, each just carrying his rifle. So very light, very lightly armed, but very quick. The border with Iran in Maysan province is very hilly, so they'll wind up and down these hills, just keeping an eye out for signs of activity or even for people sneaking across the border. And also touching base with local village elders, asking them what they've seen and trying to get tips on bad guys' activities in the area. This is not safe work. The real danger, though, is not from a confrontation with, some poorly armed, untrained infiltrator, but the dangers from thousands or even hundreds of thousands of mines left over from decades of conflict between Iran and Iraq, between the Iraqi army and Shiite rebels. There's been so much war in the area over such a long period that there's unexploded ordnance and minefields, some even decades old, which just makes them unstable, and very few of them are marked.
I'm going to try banking first. Am I getting? Straddle now?
I now straddle now.
You reckon, or can I bank it all the way? I'm not getting much fall down.
Going to lose that wheel in the side there.
For sure?
On one patrol, Labouchere actually got his vehicle stuck in the sand, which is another typical risk of operating in this kind of environment. I mean, there are no major roads to speak of. It's just dirt paths and, some of these things thousands of years old. He got stuck, and so his troops were digging him out, and I was sort of wandering around on the hills around where they got stuck, just taking pictures and looking around. And later, when we finally got the Jeep free and we were headed back to base, I asked if he ever worried about mines, and he goes, "Oh yeah, those minefields everywhere." And it occurred to me that I might have been wandering around in one.
Today we're clearing a route in front of a convoy as we move across the province of Maysan. It's quite a long route, about 60 miles, and we'll travel it in about 3 hours. But we've got 3 vehicles forward, and at every vulnerable point we're making sure that we are not going to be bombed. It's a safety measure, and it means that the convoy can move through at greater speed. It's just a broken torsion bar of some kind, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
One could say that if you do all your checks and you do them well, then the enemy will decide to go and attack a softer target. So we do our checks very well. We don't want to be attacked.
Abandoning the fixed base meant giving up the base as a supply depot. Used to be ground convoys would come into Abu Naji with all the food and water and ammunition you needed. British forces don't have that anymore, so now they're resupplied almost entirely by air. On occasion, the mobile forces will hook up with a ground convoy, but that's a delicate, dangerous, and expensive operation. So wherever possible, they either buy their supplies locally or they get them dropped in by parachute from a C-130 airplane, or a helicopter pays a visit.
السلام عليكم.
سلام.
السلام عليكم.
سلام. اهلا ومرحبا. اهلا بك.
My name is Bogdan David. I am the commander of all the forces in Maysan.
There's not much to Arifa, which was one of the border towns we visited in Maysan province. Like all towns in Maysan, it's very poor. And stopping to chat with town elders, we heard the standard, albeit totally legitimate, complaints about lack of jobs, lack of water, and lack of power.
Yeah.
Well, it's taken me 25 years to learn what I am doing, and we have given them only 3. It takes more time.
يقول انا هذا كله يعني
السلام عليكم.
25 سنه ياخذ اللي هي شنو يمكن تمشي بشغل هالعقل ولكن هسه 3 سنوات صارت ما تاخذ وقت اكثر حتى تستقر الحكومه. مشكورين.
But I wish you all peace, because that is what will bring prosperity.
يقول ولكن انا اتامل بانكم وانتم في حال السلام والامن وهذا هو الازدهار اللي يصير بالمحافظه.
Thank you.
وشكرا لكم. اهلا وسهلا في مالك.
Interesting.
Labouchere is, I think, typical of some of the mid-level British officers that I've met in Iraq. He's very well-spoken, has a very keen understanding of history and a deep respect for the customs of what he would call his hosts. He would view the occupation of Iraq as a more of a partnership, and in Maysan, that ideal view is closer to being a reality than it is elsewhere in Iraq. Many residents of southern Iraq still have a pretty favorable view of British forces, maybe not so much in Basra anymore, but out in the rural provinces there's still some mutual respect. And Labouchere's just the guy to capitalize on that remaining respect. He has in the press been referred to as a modern Lawrence of Arabia, this highly educated, sophisticated, charismatic, deeply tanned figure, who's gone native. His accomplishments and his mandate is nothing quite so dramatic as T.E. Lawrence's, but he has managed to achieve what many U.S. commanders continue to struggle to do up in the north central part of the country, which is to get locals on our side in combating criminals and smugglers and insurgents. Local cultural factors certainly have made that easier in the south than in the north. There are no Sunni insurgents in the south. But the fundamental tenets of Labouchere's philosophy would probably serve commanders elsewhere in Iraq really well. He lets Iraqis be Iraqis and do things the Iraqi way. An example of that is the firefights between the tribal forces. Most of the warfare in Maysan is intertribal, one tribe working out a problem with another tribe. And Labouchere is sanguine about these things. He actually jokes about some of the firefights he's observed. He calls them conversations.